Have you ever wondered how weather can impact a war? Imagine, it's 1941, and Germany is initiating one of the most significant military invasions in history, targeting the Soviet Union. The German forces, under the command of Adolf Hitler, were embarking on Operation Barbarossa, a massive offensive aimed at the heart of the Soviet Union. However, they were about to face a formidable opponent, and it wasn't just the Red Army. As the German forces advanced deep into the vast Russian territory, they encountered a severe adversary they hadn't wholly prepared for: the brutal Russian winter. The mercury plummeted, and the landscape transformed into a white, icy wilderness. With temperatures often dropping below -30°C, the bitter cold became an unanticipated foe. The freezing conditions posed a multitude of challenges for the German forces. Logistical operations, vital for an advancing army, became a Herculean task. The icy roads and snow-covered terrain slowed down the movement of troops and supplies. Vehicles broke down, and equipment malfunctioned due to the cold, hampering the offensive capabilities of the German forces. But the impact was not just mechanical. The soldiers, primarily outfitted for a summer campaign, found themselves exposed to the harsh elements. Frostbite became a common affliction among the troops, adding to the already mounting casualties from the battlefield. The bitter cold sapped their energy, morale plummeted, and the momentum of the invasion slowed down considerably. The severe winter conditions became a significant factor in the German military strategy. The initial plan was a swift, decisive victory before winter set in. But as the Soviet resistance hardened and the winter deepened, the German forces found themselves in a desperate struggle, not just against the Red Army, but also against the unforgiving Russian winter. As the German forces struggled to advance, the harsh winter became an unexpected adversary, proving that Mother Nature can be as formidable as any army. Fast forward to 1942, and we're in the midst of the Battle of Stalingrad, one of the bloodiest battles in history. The Eastern Front, already a harsh and unforgiving landscape, is about to become even more treacherous. The Russian winter, notorious for its brutal cold, descends upon the city, transforming it into a frozen battleground. The Battle of Stalingrad was a horrific clash between the German and Soviet forces. The city's name, bearing the mark of the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, made it a symbolic target for Adolf Hitler. The invading German forces were determined to capture it, but the city's defenders were equally resolved to hold their ground. As the battle raged on, the freezing winter conditions began to take their toll. The harsh, biting cold gnawed at the German troops, who were ill-prepared for such severe weather. Their equipment malfunctioned, frostbite became a common affliction, and logistical challenges arose as the icy conditions made movement and transportation incredibly difficult. The once formidable German army was now battling not just the Soviet forces, but also the extreme cold. The Soviet resistance was relentless. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, they were fighting in their homeland, and they used the winter to their advantage. The freezing conditions, which had turned the city into a frozen battleground, were familiar to the Soviet soldiers. They were better equipped and better prepared to withstand the winter, and they used this to inflict heavy losses on the German forces, who were struggling to adapt to the unfamiliar and brutal cold. The winter of 1942 proved to be a formidable opponent for the German forces. The freezing conditions, combined with the fierce Soviet resistance, turned the Battle of Stalingrad into a disastrous campaign for the invaders. It is said that the winter was a third enemy on the Eastern Front, an enemy that played a crucial role in the failure of the German offensive. The brutal Russian winter, coupled with the fierce Soviet resistance, turned the Battle of Stalingrad into a devastating defeat for the German forces. The frozen battleground of Stalingrad stands as a chilling reminder of the immense human suffering and loss of life that occurred on the Eastern Front during World War II. The Eastern Front was not just a clash of armies, but also a clash with nature, leading to catastrophic losses on both sides. It was a theater of World War II that saw some of the most intense and brutal fighting, with the weather playing a decisive role. The harsh Russian winter was as much an enemy to the German forces as the Soviet army itself, leading to equipment malfunctions, frostbite, and logistical nightmares. Casualties were staggering. It is estimated that around 20 million Soviet citizens, both civilians and military personnel, lost their lives. The German forces also suffered heavily, with several million soldiers and civilians falling victim to the relentless fighting and the unforgiving cold. These numbers are a sobering testament to the immense human suffering and loss of life that marked the Eastern Front. In the end, The Eastern Front serves as a stark reminder of how weather can shape the outcome of a war, turning the tide against even the most formidable of armies.